How are we all doing today? This is the TechIT Podcast. This is the July 17th edition of the TechIT Podcast. Stories today that we're going to cover include a ransomware group, ReEvil, disappearing from the internet after leaving their mark over the past few instances that have happened already this summer.
We're also going over the Twitter testing attention-grabbing misinformation labels.
Not too far away from that, we have Google being fined $593 million in France. Our friends over the ocean over treatment of news publishers.
Facebook bets another 1 billion on creators.
It's going to be a beefy one with Facebook trying to get some ground off YouTube, but that'll be covered later. Our friends at Google again coming up, which they've had a good July, with 36 states out of the 50 suing them over how they managed their Play Store, alleging damage to both consumers and the app developers on that store. That and more is what we're covering on today's TechIT Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Gregory, and today I'm with my friend Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Have you been having a good week? Anything fun going on?
I try to keep myself busy, just reading the tech news because unlike mainstream news, they use multiple sources as well as it's stuff that's in the know and that we should abide to look at, as I tend to say a lot in this podcast. As well as I just try to keep better care of myself after I got a food poisoning scare. Excuse me. Uh-oh.
Oh, that sucks, man.
So just remember to cook your shrimp evenly, people.
Ooh,
How you
gotta love that shrimp, though. I'm a big fan of shrimp.
are? Yeah, aren't we all? Unless we have.
Have you been playing any? Have you been playing any good games lately?
I thought I was gonna get into Dying Light, and it just didn't click for me. So I refunded it. So I'm gonna wait another time to get it again for when it's discounted. But otherwise, I'm gonna wait for stuff to come out in time. As I'm potentially trying to get away from screens more into back into reading more physical material. As I'm getting these
That's
canonical
good.
headaches.
I've been reading a book that's actually a Netflix series called The Last Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
This and they're like the Saxon stories or whatever. It's like loosely based on history, but it's a fantasy novel series. And I'm almost done with the series. It's like 13 books or 14 books, I think. So they're pretty cool, and you can like even if you like not sure about it, you can go check it out on Netflix. I've also been playing a little bit of Albion Online. It's kind of like a mashup of like RuneScape and League of Legends. It's pretty fun.
Yeah,
So yeah, maybe check that out sometime if you're into that kind of those kind of games. It's pretty fun, and there's a huge population on it right now, so it's not like you're gonna be playing with like not gonna be like empty or anything.
yeah, it's always good to see. And on
Mm-hmm.
that note, I'm gonna get right into the first story where ransom group ReEvil or Revil, I should say, as it's all one word, mysteriously disappeared after they've been alleged to be a part. Well, I wouldn't say alleged, but more like responsible for being a part of the meatpacking plant breach as well as the Kaseya breach, which I'll get into the Kaseya breach a bit later in this podcast. But yeah, they were the same people behind the beef supplier JBS ransomware breach and the Acacia breach. As to get a greater scope of how big these guys are, as they're of course based in Russia, so that's a bit scary or repetitive, as we somehow can't avoid talking about Russia anymore, like it's the 1960s again.
I think I was reading that, and they said that uh they're assuming that their site was offline because the US attacked it and knocked them offline, because that's where they were receiving or like notifying people how to receive their or send them crypto, right? That's where they were receiving their crypto.
Yeah, demanding $70 million to restore the data it's stolen and encrypted as. That's the essential basis of ransomware attacks. They steal data and resources and accessibility to those data and resources, and they tell the company, give us $70 million in Ethereum uh, currency or Bitcoin for us to release it to you, even though it's kind of lopsided like a genie exchange, you know?
Right.
According to Engadget.com, it's not clear why Revel's websites aren't accessible anymore, as
All right, they didn't give an explanation. It's all speculation right now.
because I was getting into politics too much because frankly I don't really care about politics anymore.
I feel like a lot of people are thinking the same thing.
It was our current president, Mr. Biden, recently revealing that he told the Russian president, Putin, who's to act on the ransomware attacks coming from his own country, to say like, "Hey man, can you please stop that, please? Thank you."
Well, hopefully he actually does something. I don't know if he actually is going to do anything, but hopefully he does something about it. Because I don't know. It seems like this just doesn't affect, you know, it affects everybody, because this is a leak down toward like
Yeah,
a bunch of other businesses. These ransomwares attacks. Um, so I feel like if I can't go to a place and buy something or get some food or whatever, I'm gonna be frustrated. So like I think it's good that someone does something about this, and we get this all figured
and
out
yeah, indubitably yes.
sooner than
As
later, right?
again, if you try to look up the like host site that has everything on it on the dark web, you'll get returned to a message that says a server with a specified host name could not be found. So, as it stands right now, you can't access it. And
I also think a lot of these attacks are, even though they're against like big companies, and like a lot of people are like, oh yeah, it doesn't affect me. I think it still affects a lot of
mhm.
us in like a lot of different ways that we don't even realize.
The potential is always there for how well it can seep into everything, especially since they're starting to finally get maybe some attention back when the gas pipeline in Colonial got breached, which supplies gas to the greater eastern shore of the country. So that's a lot of states that just got messed up gas prices,
Indeed.
which they're still climbing up over $3 in the world of the gas industry. Not like I know anything about gasoline or anything, but they're still seeing the they're still seeing the
That's
fallout of
pretty
that
high.
attack, and that was before May. That was in April,
That's pretty nuts.
correction.
And did you know that those like gas station owners, they don't even make money from gas?
Yeah.
They actually
hmm
lose money. The way they make money is when people go into their shop, like into the like store that's by the pump, and actually buy something. That's when they
Yeah,
actually make
and
money.
I'm pretty sure most interactions inside a gas station now are either to buy. As my friend who used to work at a gas station told me, the interaction's mostly them buying beer, cigarettes, or just running in and using the bathroom and buying something random like a Slim Jim or something to say, "Hey, sorry,
Right.
I just used your latrine. Can I buy these two Slim Jims?" That's like courtesy, which I agree with
Exactly.
courtesy because I still believe in common courtesy as a
I agree.
someone raised with older parents. But moving forward from that, we have this story about Twitter trying to test more, more, how you say, more attention grabbing misinformation labels as
Yeah, so kind of like our last podcast where Google was gonna put whether they were gonna label their stuff if it was constantly changing information or not the full information.
Mhm.
So, yeah, they're going the same way as Google in that sense, but they're doing it in a different way, right? They're using, color
Yes.
labels, right? So it's if it's red, it might be more misleading than if it's, like, blue or something.
The piece talks about how tweets that Twitter deems are misleading, they will get a red background around them with a short explanation and notice that users can't reply to, like, or share the content, unless on top of yellow labels, which will appear on content that isn't as actively misleading. Which
Now is those the only labels they mentioned? Are there more?
that's what was projected that they could do, and that's what Twitter support was talking about in their release, which was of course on Twitter, ironically. And with the spokesperson also saying that people who come across these new labels as a part of this limited test should expect a more communicative impact from the labels themselves, both through copy, symbols, and colors used to distill clear content about not only the label but the information or content they are engaging with. So, to bounce off of that, what's your take on this? As oh, I forget, Mike, do you use Twitter a lot? Because I really hate Twitter.
I I used to use it a little bit, like, a while back, and I don't use it that much anymore. Like, I've used it mostly just to keep in touch or to keep up with, like, friends and, like, maybe a few game releases, but, I mean, now usually just go word of mouth or just kind of, like, if I'm really interested in something, I'll look it up. Um, was it not Chrome or Google, it's Opera GX, they always have, like, the new game releases, so I don't have to look that up anymore, like, on their start page or something. So, I don't use it as much as I used to, but I think this is overall a good thing. I think the more information we know and the more like, something as simple as just having these colored labels is a benefit, I think.
Hmm.
'Cause, like, I think there are some people out there that just kinda believe everything they read, and it'll give them a little bit of extra
Yeah.
information.
Because as TechCrunch further puts out, labels are just one of the content moderation options that Twitter developed over the course of the last couple of years, along with warnings that require a click through and a pop up message designed to subtly steal people away from impulsively sharing inflammatory tweets. Which, again, as a takeaway from this, whatever helps stop the spread of misinformation, I'm all for. As I don't want to see not
Agreed.
to generalize things. I don't want to see a bunch of our friends in the older demographic start sharing stuff about how they're getting powers from taking certain medicines, or some people are lizards, or I don't know, something like a country controlling weather. I heard a new conspiracy theory floating around because us in Ohio have been have been getting a lot of rain lately, and I recently heard a radio guy mention that what if the Chinese are controlling the weather? It's like
They have
that.
a weather machine now? Why does this sound like something out of, like, a
Like that
TV
sounds
show or,
like
like, a movie?
eh,
That sounds like old
it's like Star
Superman
Trek
stuff
crap.
or Batman or something.
Like
Yeah, Star Trek. Oh my gosh, there was an episode on Star
I
Trek
know.
about that. I think there was one uh, on Stargate as well, where, like, they took this device and they were like, they as soon as they took it back, like, the whole world started going in chaos because like, there was, like, different like, it would, like, change the planets that it was on. It was calibrated for that, so it would make it more mild in certain areas and less mild in other areas. So once they got it back to Earth, it started messing up
Yeah,
the weather. It was actually a really interesting
yeah, and
episode.
I kind of it doesn't shock me too much when I see stuff like this come into real life, such as like
But haven't we already been doing that? Like, with don't we do, like, um there's like planes that like do crop that like change the air. They like put out like certain chemicals into the air so that it like rains in certain areas or
Well, yeah,
something, right?
that's what they try in
I
farm
think they've been doing,
areas.
doing stuff like
That's what
that
they
for
try
a
in
while.
farm areas. But this is someone
Yeah.
thinking that, oh, the Chinese have a giant stealth ship. It's I don't know. They're a giant stealth ship. It's the size of the Midwest Louisiana Purchase, and you just dump rain on everybody. It's like I don't know. I was on a call with someone in Colorado the other day at work, and they're fine. So if the machine's that big, why is Colorado getting no rain, or anyone up to Indiana not getting any rain, but Ohio's getting rain?
Because they're not paying the China
Yeah,
ship. You
pay the
gotta
China
pay.
ship.
That's
Those
it's like they're
they're
ransoming the
ransoming the weather
weather.
with Dogecoin from Mr. Musk and Xi Jinping are in cahoots with each other or some bull crap. But anyway, moving away from that,
Yeah, and just something a
a
little
little bit
bit more
more in our reality.
um
Google was
realistic.
fined.
Yeah. Tell me about tell
Yeah,
me
so
about these
Google was
fines.
fined to a tune of $593 million in France over a treatment of news publishers in France, because unlike America, Europe has more, let's say, forward and blunt approach with how social media is working on its site. As as I scroll down this Wall Street Journal article, the French decision is the latest flare-up in a global battle that has simmered and sometimes boiled for more than a decade, with disagreements over what, if anything, publishers should be paid when their news is available via tech platforms. Publishers argue that news is a big attraction for Google and other tech companies and that they therefore deserve a share of the company's revenue. Tech companies long responded that they already send publishers tens of billions of website visits monthly and that they think that's, enough. But now with more laws like that in the European Union, outside of course, our friends in Britain being passed, they're increasingly striking paid deals as well. Which this isn't the first foray into Google getting in trouble with non-American countries getting putting the old gavel on them, such as Google opposing an Australian law back in February, which struck down a number of content deals with publishers, such as those with News Corp, who owns places like the Wall Street Journal, ironically, while I'm reading this. So, yeah, all in all, the fine was for allegedly violating orders to negotiate paid deals with news publishers, raising pressure on the company, or Google, in the global fight over how and whether tech companies should pay for news. Which, ironically, I ran into a paywall to read this article.
I think they
So,
should. I I think they should. I think Google's getting away with a lot of stuff, and I think honestly, I don't know what's gonna happen here because I think they Google has the potential to move away from, like, live reporters and publishers. They have the potential to
of
use,
course.
AI to make their own stories, and I think eventually some big businesses like this will just have AI making stories for them, which is kinda sad because it takes jobs
Mm-hmm.
away from, like, journalists and all
Mm-hmm.
and all
As
those
much as
away
we all
from
give
their
them crap, as
sector.
I read a study recently
Um,
about how only 28% of people watch broadcast news lately, which frankly, I don't blame them. But also, some of these younger kids in college that want to be journalists on these shows, as like their big break to, that's their dream to cover news because that's what they want to do. It hurts them when potentially by the time I'm 30 or Mike gets older as well, that they might get replaced with IBM Watson.
IBM wants Yeah. So I don't see, I don't know. I have some mixed feelings here because I'm sad that, like, a lot of these jobs are disappearing, but I'm also happy
Mhm.
because I'm like, maybe things will be a little bit less biased. So, I don't know. There's a lot of different views here and a lot of different ups and downs that we can look at, But I think as of right now, uh, I think a lot of the journalists like reporters are feeling like they're kind of getting pushed out of the business by these big companies, and I think
Right.
if they're doing work, they
And
should get paid for it.
especially when
You know?
there's a growing rise in alternative journalism, such as those resided in the world of citizen journalism. For lack of a better word, citizen journalism is essentially regular random Joes filming stuff to get the content and get the news to the public, which we've essentially seen a rise of since last summer with the protests and everything going on in the country and all around the other countries outside of America as well. But that's where I'll leave that story as this won't be the last time in this podcast Google's gonna face something.
Yeah, let's move on to Facebook, another huge company. So they're putting $1 billion into creators.
Yeah,
What? Tell me
so
more about this.
they're trying to pay content creators the same way, and I want to say akin to the model that YouTube does, or frankly attempts to pay them when YouTube has such a messed up copyright system that I'm surprised anyone gets any money from YouTube these days. But the company will offer the first new bonuses to creators making videos on Facebook with in-stream ads enabled. And these bonuses will be through its stars system, which invites viewers to send streamers tips in exchange for fan perks. And that these said creators will continue to make videos or live stream games and will be eligible for these monthly bonuses based on how many viewers send them payments via stars through this October, with its
Is
Facebook
this
video
just Twitch
essentially, with
for Facebook?
Instagram following suit as they're both one and the same these days, and they're being owned by each other.
So basically, Facebook's like, we're
Mm-hmm.
the new Twitch.
Because
Come
TikTok
here and
itself
we'll give you
also
money.
launched a $200 million creator fund last
Okay.
year to just give them money to help them I don't know, give thanks to creators such as I don't know, the D'Amelio sisters. I don't know anyone on TikTok.
Wait, TikTok is paying out
Yeah,
their
the big ones.
creators?
The ones
Is
that
it
give
just the
them
big
attention.
ones?
According to data
This is
from
the
Sensor
first I'm
Tower,
hearing about it.
as
Well, honestly, I think there's a lot of people on TikTok that put a lot of hard work and time into their craft,
rightly
and
so,
I think it's
as
good that they're being
well, it gets
appreciated.
people like in my mom and dad's generation upset that it's like, oh, how dare they make money without putting their hands right in the mud and I don't know, going to the push button factory or something, getting the brass ring or breaking the glass ceiling when the market isn't consolidated itself back to normal. So I kind of don't blame these people for doing other options to just make something of themselves, make personas. Because I read something about the growth of the persona and the character over the
Is
reality, which has led to the rise of reality shows as well as YouTube creators these days that get into the boxing market. Because the current boxing market's kind of dead, to lack of a better word, where no one knows any of the boxing stars nowadays, besides the ones that are, over 40 and YouTubers want to fight like Floyd Mayweather or are retired like Mr. Definitely not homophobic Manny Pacquiao.
I think some of the smaller um stars or famous people are gonna kind of fall off as TikTokers and big YouTubers, and as they get more popular. Especially if you think about it, they're like the paywall for these is free for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
you can get a TikTok account for free, you can get a YouTube account for free. You can hop on there and watch your favorite
Rightly
creator.
so.
Like there's a lot of great creators out there. Especially like the especially like the one
Exactly.
we're going to talk
And
about in
we
our
find
company
more and more
review
every day
today.
because I'm getting into more documentary based videos, such as those I mentioned before. And like I said, the rise of citizen journalism has also seen the rise of those said creators on YouTube as well, such as PhilosophyTube, which I can recommend, and Channel 5 News with, I think his name's Andrew or Matthew Callahan. I'd recommend that as well on youtube.com. But like I said, this is basically a bunch of tech giants with, again, over 3 billion global downloads on some of them.
Speaking of tech giants, let's head back over to Google and let's talk about the 36 states sued by Google or suing Google over how it manages the
Right.
Play
So,
Store.
Mr. Sundar Pichai, I definitely didn't pronounce that correctly, so I apologize. Sundar Pichai of Google is testifying right now before the House Judiciary Committee for this matter. Or, well, he did in the past, according to what I'm finding on this MSN.com news website. As 36 states, including Utah, New York, North Carolina, and Tennessee, as well as DC, are bringing on this lawsuit, as they argue that Google is maintaining a monopoly of sorts, which won't be the last time monopoly is tied to Google these days, as with the Biden administration taking on antitrust laws, especially in the big tech industry right now, or ongoing as they try to put something over them. As the suit currently claims that Google favors its Play Store over other app stores available on Android devices, arguing that developers have, quote, no reasonable choice but to distribute their apps through their store.
I think this is true. I think Google holds a big portion of the App Store. Like it has a grip on that, and whether that's good or bad, I don't know. I've heard worse setups. I think they said what is it like 30%
Yes,
of profits is what Google gets,
and commission.
which it doesn't seem that bad. And that's only if your application makes money, right? So if your application costs something, that's what I'm assuming.
No.
It's not. It's
Well,
you don't
this
have to pay
includes
to put it
in-app
on there, right?
purchases as well. And actually,
Oh, it includes in-app purchase. So, like, what if you had in-app advertising that
it's
made you money?
I say the
So
cut
I've
would be
seen a
the
lot of
same, which
applications go
is
that
actually
way.
lower these days as facing pressure from the government or,
Do you think?
the Justice Department nagging on your phone saying, "Hey, stop what you're doing, I'm suing you." I mean, I don't know how litigation works, so don't quote me on that. I don't think it's like that. They dropped the commission rate to actually 15% at the beginning of this month of the time we're recording this in July.
Well, that's good. I don't think it's a huge cut, especially compared to like what does it
I
seem?
believe
Isn't
it's
there like
60.
cut like 60 or 70%? Yeah. So it's not that bad. Um, and if you think about it, a lot of these applications are free and they just make money off ads in the application or microtransactions or, if you have a game you want to pay for
Right.
some
Like,
gadget in
look
the
how
game
big the
or
Candy
whatever.
Crush industry still is with the Candy
So,
Crush game,
yeah,
as
I
well
think
as Angry Birds. That's still one of the most profitable
right.
uh, mobile games today. I have cousins, baby cousins that were raised on that game. While I try to talk to them about economics or
I think this is I think this is good that they're suing Google, like trying
hmm
to keep them in their place because I think they're very close to becoming a monopoly, but I don't think this is where you want to
It could be a focus.
focus your attacks. I don't I don't think this is a
No,
I don't think this is like the biggest issue
this is like trying to
when
attack
it
a
comes to Google as a
well-armored
monopoly.
castle, and
I think there's
instead of going right to the castle, you went for where the stables are, where there's like less defense and like no focus.
Yeah.
But to close off this, as the App Store industry is actually pretty big in terms of advertising, like you mentioned as well, with the App Stores controlled by Apple and Google having been a major target of antitrust authorities around the world, especially those in the country of the United States as well as overseas in the EU, who frankly I think are more upfront with what they're going with this in the EU. With competitors and critics saying the stores allow the two giants to play gatekeeper to the world's mobile phones, giving them immense power over the internet and digital economy. Digital economy. Even though Google does allow other companies to sell apps on the Android operating system, which, sure, I don't know if that makes them that better, but that's how it is now, as current senators are praising the lawsuit, saying it's exactly the type of aggressive antitrust enforcement we need right now in our country, as it's another attack on big tech in a way, even though it's technically not Google. Like the company itself as a whole, it's just like the App Store, which is actually subdivision.
Yeah, it's just a subdivision of the company that feels very small. Maybe it's bigger than we think. Maybe
If something goes
maybe
through
this
with
is how
this,
their
then
big revenue comes in.
with all the help we can do, then whatever helps can help them. They just help the market.
Well, I guess we'll find out. Yeah, I guess we'll find out. Let's move into more Google. The super the super deep was it DeepMind
Yes,
perceiver? This is
it's
this is
a tool
AI,
to
right?
just use to better process anything and everything that Google has making has been making or acquired since it was invented by Ashish Vaswani, another colleague at Google in 2017.
This is exciting. I'm a big fan of using AI because it can do a lot of great things, and I think one of the things they were trying to get at here is the use of compressing data, and especially in like video, so that processing video is
And
is
essentially a good
faster and
deep learning
easier.
model, supermodel. Not the ones that walk across the stage, but a deep learning neural network that can perform a plethora of tasks. Even though it's still not fully consolidated as like a big boy quote power, as it did not do well in some tests.
Yeah, but I see its potential. I see that moving forward, this could be used in editing. It could be used in gaming. It could be used in. There's just so many. There's a lot more than that. There's just so many different things this could be places this could be used. Um, especially when rendering stuff. I think that's what it was hammering at, right? It was hammering at the fact that it can process things faster with AI than your than your graphics card or
Potentially,
something. Is that what
as
they were trying to lean towards?
trying to work in like a point cloud system as well as attribute itself towards other things such as image recognition.
Right. So it could be used in facial recognition software. It has so much
Like for
potential.
instance, it have to be able to map the coordinates of a pixel in an image to an array so that the locality of data is perceived, as it is the perceiver within it that takes into account that tag and that structural information during its training phase. And it's just working on being processed.
So I think I'm excited about this. I would like to see more results because I think as of
Yes,
right now it's still in a lot of testing, right? There's um but I think moving forward this could potentially um allow your hardware to get more more processing for less. So like you could buy a lower. This is all speculation because there's still a lot to be seen here, but you could use a lower end machine for a higher end game is what I'm perceiving to quote the product or to reference the product there. So I'm excited about this. Hopefully they'll come out with more about that soon. And then should we jump into hardware with Valve and the handheld gaming device? It's called the Steam Deck, right? I think the Steam Deck has a lot of promise. There's now comparing it to the Switch, I would say the pricing is a little bit high. If you look at the Switch versus the Steam Deck, there's uh, I think they said the new or the new Switch is $50 higher than the Steam Deck, which is about $400. So I'm thinking this might not be something I'd go out and purchase uh like for the holidays unless I was like, oh, I don't have I don't have a gaming PC or a console, or maybe I'm on the move a lot. So like unless I'm like constantly on the move, I don't see myself
Right.
buying this.
Eh, I mean, it's
So it's okay.
bold of Valve to do. I apologize for that, listeners. I just lost power, and I jumped on my phone to do the rest of this. So I'll see how much I can do from here
But
before
would you
if my power comes back. But regardless, yeah, the Steam Deck is pretty impressive in like
yeah, I think it's
just
got a
like
lot of
on a
potential.
on
I
paper
like
idea as it's going right up
the
against
extremity
Nintendo.
or not the extremity, the ability to add devices like your keyboard, your mouse, like a monitor. It's got a lot of potential there. It's got expandable storage. It's SSD and or NVMe, which is really fast. It's got the 16 gigabytes of RAM. I'm a big fan of that. It's got a quad core Zen 2. These are all looking like good aspects there. Um, the one thing I would say is, wait, what's the refresh rate on the screen? Does it say? I'm not seeing where it talks about the refresh rate. I think that's something that we need to know. Wait, 40 watt hours.
Yeah, they didn't reveal like all the complete in-depth specs of it as the resolution is, I think 1280 by 1280 by 1080, which is kind of not too up to date. That's like that would have been good like 2 years ago. But it is again a handheld PC that weighs double the weight of a Nintendo Switch, and it's a company
Which
that
is
has
it's
stopped
very, yeah,
making
it's very
games and is
ballsy of
trying
them.
to
I would like to
foray
see
into hardware.
at least, I think they should have a refresh rate of at least 120 if they want to get this product out there, which I'm not seeing anything on the refresh rate of the screen. So if it's 60, that's kind of like kind of old school because that's what some of my old laptops have. And if you're going out and buying a $400
Hmm.
handheld, you're gonna want something a little bit more, a little bit higher end. Is what I'm thinking here. But I think the one thing that kind of holds me back here is like the Switch has your ability to play with a friend. You can take off the sides and use them as joysticks, which I know they're not great. Um, I don't know if it has that functionality. Can you play 2, 3-player games on this? There's a way to okay. I would assume and they said they have blue
There's a
wired
way to.
wireless, like
You can just
Bluetooth
like
with your
stream it to a
headset.
TV.
If they mentioned this off the bat, like, "Hey, you could connect 2 mice to this and play a 2-player game," or, like, if your friend has one see, that's the thing, you have to I would assume you could play with your friends if your friend has one, but, like, I want there to be, like, "Hey, you can play a 2-player game on this device, just pull out your wireless mouse and I don't know, connect it with Bluetooth." That's what I wanna see.
Because there's a way to do. I want to say that's possible, as I saw a multiplayer being attempted on it, but you're essentially cutting the
Right,
screen in
right,
half,
and
like
then
kind of like couch. What do you call it? Couch co-op, where the screen's cut in half, and when it's for something important as it's a racing game or fighting game. I'm not sure how that looks when the screen's barely bigger than my phone, but this comes out in December, and while I transition to get back on my desktop, Mike, can you bring into attention the this device that turns somehow
oh, right,
sweats
well
from fingers
as a
into
transition there, I was kinda
power?
looking at the power on this device, and I was like, well, one of the big issues with the Switch, with the handheld devices, and not only that, my phone, which I'm thinking here, what's the difference between the Valve Steam Deck and my phone? And I'm like, well, power. Like that's the one thing that we crave. I think they said 7 hours. I think I get like 2 days on my phone. So why am I not just using my phone? But like if I'm gaming, it's going to be even less. And being able to use a device that has ability to recharge it.
Yeah,
Now I think the what's the device called that allows you to recharge? I don't think they have a name for it yet, do they? The charger, the device that turns to yeah. I don't think they named it yet, but um, being able to recharge your phone or a watch. I think they said it works with the watch right now. Um, just I think this is definitely something
yes.
we should be working for toward. I'm very excited about this product. I constantly find myself at like, oh, I have to plug in my phone. Um, especially if I'm using it, if I'm out and about and I'm using it all the time. I'm on low power, so I think this is a great device, and this is something I would definitely buy. If this came out like, "Hey, I could put on a glove and it recharge my phone," I'd love this. This is, like, the best item, and, like, that could be, like, a new style thing too. Um, this is one of my favorite wearables. What was that?
Imagine the transfer of this.
Oh my gosh, that'd be great.
Excuse me. Imagine the transfer of this for people that work
That
out,
would be great.
and you can actually charge everything when you work out at the gym or in your house. Because I've, I guess, seen a big
Or if
boom
you're a
of
runner,
people
you could
working
charge
out
your phone while
inside
you're
rather than
running.
outside. Even before the
This
pandemic happened, there was that as well. Because I've seen multiple versions of on-the-go
well, I'm just
charging.
saying from this
With
device, yeah,
one project I used to
I'm
follow,
assuming you would still
I
sweat
believe
where
it was
your hands
called
would sweat while
the
you're running.
Shift or Swift wear
So this device
shoes.
would work while you're
Seen that
running.
as well.
Um, I think this has a lot of potential, and
Hmm.
when this comes out, I'd probably buy one, especially since I'm one of those people that likes to be on the go. I would get a lot of use out of this. I think the big limiting factor here is a price point. How much is this going to cost? And
And
based on like other like wireless charging devices, I doubt more than $20 is what I'm thinking. But that's just speculation, and let's move into security and the case was how does it Casey the attacks from the ransomware Kaseya. Okay,
Yeah, Kaseya. So it was during a good old Independence Day weekend that this this IT company, internationally based in Dublin, Ireland, and its headquarters in the U.S. or the States in Miami, with its presence and vendors over across 10 countries. It provides remote monitoring and management tools for people while handling networks and endpoints to just help enterprises and MSPs or managed service providers, with the company themselves saying that over 40,000 organizations worldwide. See, that's what I meant earlier by the scope of these attacks and their potential. Again, 40,000 organizations worldwide use at least one Kaseya software solution, and they got breached Independence Day weekend. As these customers were notified of the breach via email, phone, and online notices, and it occurred around July 2nd at 2 p.m. Eastern Defined Time, or EDT. As it started as out of abundance of caution, as they urged everyone, with the CEO of the company, Fred Vacola, urging everyone to please shut down their VSA servers or virtual server agents that use remote management, to just look into their clients' other tools, which the scope of what you can do with that is insane. To mention it for a second, it's just managing other affiliates' computers in terms of getting them troubleshot as well as managed and fixed. But they said themselves on July 4th that it was been a victim of the sophisticated cyber attack, and that while it didn't affect software as a service servers or SaaS servers, they were once they were fully operational back up again after they somehow said that they weren't, which is concerning to me because they're kind of doubling saying there in a way. They're currently just trying to work in a new patch for on-premise clients in parallel with trying to get everything back up and running, such as their data centers restoration as well as their servers and the company themselves. With the FBI themselves describing the incident as being a supply chain ransomware attack.
Yeah, this is very similar to the one that we talked about last time. The Solar Winds one, right?
Yes, and
Because it affected a lot of companies downstream. Um, I think they said it was a bunch of supermarket stores that were offline
oh
in
yeah,
Sweden.
like 40,000 or like thousands of supermarkets in Sweden, as well as some schools in Maryland that were affected by that, or this very attack as well. With Kaseya SolarWinds, it was over 200 reporting organizations. This company had a unit or some form of it in 40,000 organizations. So that's why I'm getting increasingly concerned with how the scope of these could go, as the mainstream news continues to avoid it and instead talk about, I don't know, boring stuff
I
like
think
the infrastructure.
I think we a lot of companies need to take a step back and look at their setups for possible um what am I trying to say here? It's possible weaknesses in the yeah, vulnerabilities
Vulnerabilities.
that can leak down into other companies like this. This is um this is the second time this has happened. And
And the greater landscape of this is just going to continue as even though we're supposed to be one of the greatest powers of the world, supposedly in quotes and quotes within those quotes, because I have the correction of 800 COOP supermarket chain store in Sweden being temporarily closed due to these servers being connected to Kaseya, as they were unable to open their cash registers during this attack. But yes, the scope of this is very great, with the number of vulnerable Kaseya servers online visible and open to attackers dropping by 96% from 1,500 at the time and day of the attack on July 2nd to 60 by the 8th of July, per note by Palo Alto Networks. As they insisted in a press release on the 6th that Kaseya said that while impacting about 50 of Kaseya's customers, which I think isn't like too much when you say it like that, but in reality, it's over 800, 1,500 businesses down the chain, which that's a lot of people. This attack was never a threat nor had any impact on critical infrastructure, which I guess that saves them a bit, as it is a press release, and when companies do press releases, their job is to try to save their butts,
Right.
essentially, from repercussions or
And you do have
facing.
to credit the company for giving notice to all their vendors or users that. But I think they said they contacted them on multiple platforms. Was it like phone, email? I think there was like 3 or 4 different platforms they contacted them on to have them shut down their servers.
Yeah, because this is a
Right.
global company.
So
As
they did their
an
due
independent,
diligence and got everything shut down. So that's good.
as that lessened it so that in case many of those devices were linked, it would have worked like a worm
Right.
virus, essentially, or mimicking it, because ransomware and worms are separate from each other. Don't get confused by it. Because this attack was initially triggered via an authentication bypass vulnerability in their web interface, which I don't want to say is a developer's fault, but when it's something as live and as accessible as a public web interface for a virtual server agent that anyone affiliated can reach,
I can't remember. Was this 0-day release? Like release day error or vulnerability?
not completely. It's not labeled 0 day, I want to say, as there were 0 day vulnerabilities, but it wasn't like a 0 day attack. It was a sophisticated
Oh,
one.
okay.
As according to a separate firm, 0 day vulnerabilities were exploited in this matter by the attackers to trigger a bypass authentication and for code execution, allowing them to infect endpoints with ransomware.
So this I'm assuming this
Even
was
though the
I'm
company
assuming this was after
emphasized
a big
there was
release
no.
of an update to the software, and the vulnerability was not taken out or not seen as an issue on the release day. What was immediately like attacked. So I'm
Yeah.
guessing that's what happened.
eh, I, to close this off, I just find this as another example of companies working with cybersecurity in like a react and respond manner instead of a zero trust manner, which is a bad philosophy to work by. As you can't just be in the mindset of I'll just care about it when it goes
Right.
wrong. Like I don't know what you can put that mindset on otherwise, where it's like, aren't you gonna restock the shelves with bread and stuff? No, I'm gonna wait till it's completely empty and I get
Do you
complaints.
think an audit of
Like, what does that make
Do you think an
sense?
audit of the company's structure would have or software structure would have eliminated this?
I think that could have potentially helped them, as well as just having a relationship intact with independent cybersecurity firms to do tests ransomware attacks on them to see how safe they are.
That's always a good option. Is testing it with from you can employ a company to test the infrastructure by attacking it, which is always a good way to go.
Because these Reports continue with the Reddit explainer. Oh God, why is that a word? Reddit explainer. With it noting that even though it had estimated 1,000 companies that had servers and workstations encrypted in this space, Huntress, a vendor affiliated with them, added that it is reasonable to suggest thousands of small businesses may have been impacted. Which that's the scary part of it, is that, as I mentioned, the scope of these can go so great, much like SolarWinds did when it impacted places as high up as the Department of Justice in America.
That's definitely a scary notion.
So, in closing, I just kind of want to know what are all you companies doing? Just please take cybersecurity more seriously. That's the most I can say.
All right, let's go and head over to our company review. Um, Today we're reviewing a YouTube channel again. The YouTube channel is called Bitwit. This is a PC builder and part reviewer and many other things. He has a lot of great information, especially for new, for old, for everybody that just on computer parts, computer care, computer building. He does some reviews like new video cards. So if you're interested in that, he's got some decent advice for that. So go ahead and check out his channel. It's really cool. He does some really cool builds. Yeah, I just really enjoyed his channel. Greg, have you seen any of his videos?
I was intrigued by the videos about him trying to make the worst PC possible, which kind of coincides with what I find certain former universities I've been come to know employ, where they just get labs with all of the same computer, and the computer sometimes can't handle what the lab is for. Especially the ones back in the universities and of just to name a few: Akron, Case Western Reserve, CSU, Tri-C, and even as far as my grade school, just slow machines that just were slow to innovate, and it cost the students because of how like minimal it was.
He does some cool videos on like minimalistic builds for gaming. So like he's like, oh, if you have this much money, try and build something like this. Um, I think he had like a $700, $1,000, and like a couple $1,000 builds, which I think I used as a guide for building my PC, where I literally just used his $700 build and switched out the video card for like a better video card or a better value, more bang for the buck kind of thing, and switched out the hard drive for a 1 terabyte SSD NVMe 2.0, or was it point 0.2? I can't remember. Um, but yeah, and I love it. My PC is kind of a beast. Although I might I might th- I might I might I might upgrade the CPU later on. Um, for like,
It's always room to upgrade because unlike the Steam Deck, you can upgrade your
well, my
PC.
CPU is kind of, I mean, it's great for like most games, but for shooters, it kicks up. It's one of my limiting factors. Kicks up pretty high to sometimes it's on 100%. Of course, I do play games like Planetside. Planetside 2,
Oh yeah,
it's
PlanetSide, Crisis
big
are big
CPU hits.
big
Yeah,
CPU games.
I've not played Doom yet. I gotta try it out. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying.
Due to technical issues, the last few minutes of this podcast got accidentally waved off or deleted during the export process of this podcast onto streaming platforms. So I'd like to apologize for that. as there are many different technical issues that happen during this podcast, such as my power going off in the middle of it. So I'd just like to reiterate and say check out Bitwit's YouTube channel as well as the other stories that we mentioned in this podcast. Thank you for listening to us on a platform of your choosing, be it YouTube, SoundCloud, or Buzzsprout. And see you around.